Americanuck Radio.
News, opinion, and a little irreverence from both sides of the 49th parallel. This is Americanuck Radio with Mike Phillip.
Welcome back, everybody. We're live on Americanuck Radio. The call-in line is 855-660-4261. Once again, 855-660-4261. And if you want to call the show and give an opinion or talk about any of the subjects that we have going on, we totally encourage that. Also, you can go to americanuckradio.com, click on contact to shoot us an email and tell us just how much you hate Professor Mike. The inbox is full of those, but awesome. We'll try to accommodate you. Now, we've got a guest on today from Toronto. He's probably one of the most controversial people in Canada at this time, if you can find them, because they've done their best to censor him in every way possible. And some of you listening are going to agree with that move. And now here's the issue for me. Free speech, baby. Now, here in Canada, we have the Constitution of Canada incorporates the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Section 2 of the Charter grants to everyone, among other things, freedom of conscience, religion, freedom of thought, belief, and here's the big thing, opinion and expression, including freedom of the press and other media. Now, the thing that you cannot do is you cannot threaten people with violence. That's a crime. And we do see that happening, but we're going to get into it later on. Now, back in March, Ottawa area lawyer Richard Warman filed a human rights complaint against Canada Post and the government for delivering the newspaper that Dr. James Sears is the chief editor of.
Essentially on Friday, what I did was I filed a formal human rights complaint against Canada Post and the government of Canada. I did that on the basis that under the Canadian Human Rights Act, it's illegal for a business like Canada Post to distribute hate propaganda either in the workplace or into the public. And Canada Post is doing both in relation to a tabloid newspaper called Your Ward News.
Now, the interesting thing about this is that Canada Post has been challenged several times in the past on similar, if not, pretty much the exact same issue.
So Canada Post has been challenged by various different groups in the past because of this newsletter. And in each case, it says it can't make that decision as to what it's going to distribute, that would be free speech.
And actually, I think that's wrong both legally and morally.
So Warman goes on to explain his reason for filing.
I had written to them in March of this year indicating why I thought it was against their own regulations that deal with what you can and can't mail. And then I pointed out as well the fact that there were numerous international legal obligations taken by the government of Canada that obliged them to suppress hate propaganda and not profit from its delivery.
Now, in the beginning, the head of Canada Post, Judy Foote, actually opposed this because, let's face it, Canada Post is not in the position to be the arbiter of who or what they're going to decide is illegal to send.
So I don't think that's actually correct, and that's why when I didn't receive a response from Judy Foote, the minister responsible for Canada Post, and I received that commitment from Canada Post that they didn't necessarily agree with the material, but they were going to continue delivering it. That's why I decided to take the next step and file the human rights complaint.
Now, Canada Post actually told its workers that they could be punished for refusal to deliver this magazine in the beginning. But as you can see, we're going to get into exactly what happened with that. Dr. Sears, how are you today?
How are you today, Mike?
I'm wonderful. Glad to have you on the show. Now, listen, you're a pretty opinionated guy. And let me make this clear right off the bat. I don't agree with everything that you say, but I've never met anybody that I agree with 100%. But that's the beautiful thing about living in a country with freedom of speech. Now, you have a right to an opinion. You just can't hurt anybody, and it's really that simple. Now, can you get into a little bit about what happened after lawyer Richard Warman filed this complaint and what has come out of it since?
Well, what happened was he filed a complaint. The Human Rights Commission has done nothing, because really we're not breaking any laws. Our newspaper is offensive because I'll give you examples of things they don't like. For example, in our latest issue, we referred to Black Lives Matter as Black Lies Matter. And
not illegal.
What's that? It was perfectly legal because
not illegal. Yeah.
It's not illegal because most of these shootings, most black people are dying because other black people are shooting them. It's not as much the cops, and the cops kill more white people than they do black people, and the cops are usually pretty good, especially in Canada. I don't see why they're doing Black Lives Matter protesters here. And whenever someone says all lives matter, they flip out on them. So
yeah, we've talked about that on the show before, and it's interesting that you pointed out because it's usually it's in Democrat-controlled states. Like in the city of Chicago last week, 100 people were shot. So, I mean, the evidence is there.
No. I mean, we want full gun rights. The other thing that we put in our paper is I don't agree with the Hollywood narrative when it comes to the quote-unquote Jewish Holocaust. I mean, this business about 6 million Jews being gassed is all one big lie, and it's slander against the German people. I don't like it. And, I'm Greek background. But for me, the truth is what's important. And we should have the right to speak out. I also am a fan politically of Adolf Hitler. It's only a very small part of my paper. I mention him occasionally. But every time I mention it, they lose their marbles, these guys. They go crazy. And they say, oh, my God, he's a Holocaust denier, anti-Semite, racist, homophobe, Islamophobe. They start calling me names. And I'm like, buddy, I'm just expressing a political opinion. I like Donald Trump. And I know Donald Trump's favorite book is a book of Hitler's speeches that he keeps in a night table by his bed. So
I've never heard that.
Come on. Yeah, it's true. You can look it up, actually. He claims it was a gift, and his wife says, no, he loves the book. Like, I guess his ex-wife, right? You can go look up Book of Hitler's speeches. You can Google it right now. Book of Hitler's speeches, Donald Trump, bedside. It'll come up. So, you know what? Just because I like Hitler's political theory, I like Ron Paul's political theory. I like Jesus Christ. So I like a combo of Jesus, Ron Paul, and Adolf Hitler. Well, to me, if you read that, most people should be intrigued. They should say, wow, this is crazy stuff. I want to read this guy's opinion. But no. There's people in Canada that say, oh, my God, he mentioned the H word. He said Hitler. Oh, my God. And oh, he denied that 6 million Jews were gassed, even though the 6 million number was a number they just made up. And then they said 4 million died at Auschwitz. They put 4 million on a plaque. They lowered the plaque from 4 to 1.5 million. But they never lowered the 6 number. You know, like it's just like, it's all lies, man. And I don't like lies. I like if I catch anyone lying, I cut him off. If anyone, not just women, like if you're in a relationship and a woman lies about how much she paid for that purse, well, she may lie about what she did last night. You know what I'm saying? And it's
right.
The same thing in business. If I'm in a business relationship and someone lies about some sort of an expenditure in the business, I stop doing business with them because I'm
of the opinion, James, that if a politician is caught lying to his people, he should be going to jail for a long time.
Or should we say she should be going to jail, if you know what I mean?
He or she.
So, okay, because, I mean, Hillary
30
Clinton's
seconds
a big
left.
liar.
Oh, yeah, Hillary's the worst.
The worst. And the other thing is that in the latest edition of our newspaper, which is called Your Ward News...
I got to cut you off, James. We'll open up with this on the other side. I hear the music. We're all a slave to the clock. Mike Super Don with James Sears, editor of Your Word Knows on Americanuck Radio. We'll be back after this. Welcome back, everybody. We are live. Mike, and Super Don on Americanuck Radio, and we have a outrageous man for a guest, the editor of Your Ward News, Dr. James Sears. Now, it's funny because when I mentioned to a few people that we were going to have you on, Dr. Sears, a family member of mine actually was really outraged and said that you should be beaten up by people. And then another person I talked to said, cool, he's interesting. I don't agree with everything he says, but he's very interesting. So, I mean, you stir emotion, definitely.
Wow, that's some guys pay to have that done.
Yeah, right. So,
but anyway, okay. But getting back, okay, why they want to beat me up? All right. So let's talk about the paper and then what's happened since, because I know we're going to stay on topic here. So in the last issue, if you go to yourwardnews.com, you can download a PDF, free PDF of our issue. I have an excellent graphic artist by the name of Robert James, and he does all the graphics in the paper. And we did an article on how Justin Trudeau's wife, Sophie Trudeau, after she met Michelle Obama, it went to her head because she sees that Michelle Obama, who's a total Marxist parasite, has all these personal assistants. And she wanted personal assistants too, even though our First Lady doesn't have the job, doesn't really have an office in Canada. She just has to look pretty and knock out babies. You know what I'm saying? So she wanted personal assistants. She wanted us to pay for her nannies. And
I remember that. Yeah, she did. She got 2 Filipino nannies, didn't she?
Right. She made the taxpayers pay for it until we put out an article, and within days of the article hitting, they took one of the nannies off the payroll because we're on top of them. But listen, we did an article on them where she's like Marie Antoinette, and instead of saying "let them eat cake," she's saying "let them eat maple glazed donuts." Right? So Marie Antoinette.
That's Canadian.
And then at the end of it, the guillotine scene where she's getting her head chopped off, and her husband's waiting to get his head chopped off, and then they're speaking French to each other. We did the speech bubbles in French, and then we put Donald Trump in the scene, and Donald Trump's saying, "Are you executing them for speaking Mexican?" Right? Because he doesn't know, right? And he said, "Let me borrow that guillotine so we can deal with our illegal aliens." So anyway, it was funny, right? But people don't have a sense of humor. So what happened was Judy Foote, her name's Judy Foote with an E on the end, she lost it. And she decided to sign what's called an executive order. Now, Judy Foote is a member of Parliament who's also the cabinet minister that's in charge of Canada Post. Right. In other words, she's kind of like your postmaster general in the United States.
Fair enough.
She has the power, without any proof, to say that we're doing something illegal. She doesn't know what it is, but we're doing something illegal. She doesn't have to prove it. But she signed an order, only done 3 or 4 times in the last 100 years in Canada, banning us from using the post office. Now, what that means is the only way she couldn't ban her newspaper criminally, because there's nothing criminal in our paper. But by signing the order, now we can't send it through Canada Post. Matter of fact, I personally, if I go to the post office to mail a Christmas card to my aunt, I go to jail. So in other words, I am banned from going anywhere near a postal box.
Weren't you guys investigated by the Toronto police and they couldn't find any evidence of a crime whatsoever and declined to charge?
Buddy, they investigate us every single month because people complain and they say this is offensive, but it's not illegal.
Right.
But here's the thing. I am going to predict, my prediction, that the Liberal government is going to get somebody in the police services to trump up some fake charges. Because here's the thing. We are appealing Judy Foote's criminal, ridiculous, corrupt order, banning it. We're appealing it. Now, Judy Foote has to somehow justify what she did. I think that they're pressuring Toronto police to come up with some charges. And the Attorney General in the province of Ontario, I think you guys have Attorney Generals also in the United States, right?
Yep.
The Attorney General in the province of Ontario is a Liberal, and I think they're going to work in cahoots. Even though Toronto police don't want to charge us, if the Attorney General pushes it, they'll charge. And I think we'll be charged with hate crimes to cover up for Judy Foote blocking our publication for political purposes for the Liberal Party.
In order to save face for her, basically, so that they have a reason for what they did. I get it. And now listen, everybody listening, if you find this guy's ideas offensive, that's fine. But listen, if they can do an end run around the law to shut him down without charging him, they can do that to anybody, and that is why I've got him on. That's my issue.
Well, look at me. Look at me, Mike, how I've been banned from Carleton University, Ottawa
You're
University.
banned from the Church of Scientology.
I'm banned from the
You're banned from Carleton for what?
So Carleton University had this big HIV, I guess you can call it auditorium gathering. There was probably about 500 students and a bunch of professors. And I've done more than 10 years on HIV and the scam of the HIV tests and AZT, antiretroviral drugs, things like that. So I went into Carleton University, and I handed out some pamphlets and some burnt DVDs that had a few documentaries on them, House of Numbers, AIDS Incorporated, things like that. Handed out a bunch of stuff, and, it was getting a bunch of people's attention. And then I was like, okay, you know what? I don't have enough papers to go around. I didn't expect 500 people. So, I mean, of course, I broke the rules, me being a douchebag. Went up on stage, and I just randomly walked up, and I thanked, everybody for having me on stage. And I said, hey, everybody, great for having me up here. I appreciate all these professors, getting me up here at the last minute, and I'd just like to mention the documentary House of Numbers. I went on and on and on, and then I got tackled by security. RCMP was called. Fun stuff.
Really? For that?
I'm banned from the Scientology clinic in Ottawa because I did their IQ test, and they said that I scored too high and that I'm a cheater. Banned from the Freemasons.
Didn't you beat Stephen Hawking's original scores?
I got 1 point higher than Stephen Hawking's score from the 1970s or something.
Well, you know what? You should have told the Scientologists that you're actually a cyborg that was sent from the home planet, to
their new prophet.
Check up on them.
No, I had dreams of groping L. Ron Hubbard, and that's actually what gave me.
We've got 1 minute left in this segment. We have 1 minute left in this segment, and like I said, it's a free speech issue, and Mike's been banned from certain. But in all fairness, you did get up on stage and disrupt the event. I mean, whether that warrants getting tackled by security, and didn't you put one of them in a martial arts hold?
They would not have any form of a debate or question, so I had no choice. Yeah.
Mike, and Super Don with Dr. James Sears. We'll be back after these messages from our sponsors. Stick around. Welcome back to our show. This is Mike Phillip with Americanuck Radio, Super Don, and Professor Mike riding shotgun with Dr. James Sears. And you can always tell if you're going to like somebody just about by who hates them. Well, let me tell you what. Feminists hate Dr. Sears. And let's get into that a little bit, and then let's make it quick because we got a caller, Phil in New Mexico, who wants to talk to you, Dr. Sears. But why do feminists hate you so much?
Well, you know what? I'm a masculinity activist, and I actually was a seduction guru for a while, and teaching guys how to seduce women because I noticed that the industry was very corrupt. Men, there were guys out there teaching men, secret words on how to get a woman into bed, this sort of thing. It was all crap, and I realized that society was feminizing men, psychologically and chemically castrating them. The diet,
I agree with you there. We're attacked before we're born.
Exactly. And the thing is, you know, like you can't say anything, or a woman immediately calls you sexist, or you're called a homophobe, or whatever. So the bottom line is, you know, I started, you know, speaking out against this sort of thing. And what's really interesting is one news reporter that interviewed me on the air recently, she didn't publish the whole interview. She just published bits and pieces.
That's what they do.
It was interview for City TV, and Cynthia Mulligan asked me, and this didn't get on the air. She said, she basically accused me of being a sexist. She says, "Do you think I shouldn't be working? I should be at home in the kitchen." And I said to her very clearly, first of all, I'm not your husband, so I have no right to tell you where you should be. But if you were my wife, yes, you'd be between the kitchen and the bedroom. Yeah. And the thing is, I told her straight. Now, and you know what? All men, normal men, think this way, and they're afraid to express it. But let me tell you something. I'm going to tell you that a lot of women, they want their men to be sexist pigs, and it turns them on. And I think men would get laid a lot more if they just were a little more piggish with women. It's not illegal to go up to a woman and say, "You got great legs, baby," or, you know, or what have you. But the key is to approach them very confidently. For example, you see a guy go up to a woman and say, "Hey, you want to go have a coffee with me?" No, why are you asking her? You go up there and say, "Let's go and get a coffee," right? Don't do it in form of a question. Okay, that's a simple thing, right? But in the old days, men would grab them by the arms. I mean, nowadays, it's sort of semi-illegal. You got to be careful. I'm hoping that after Trump's elected in 2-3 years, we can grab their asses and their breasts. You know, I want to get us back at least a few years where men tell them to go for coffee, not ask. And we'll slowly get to manhandling them a little bit a few years down the line.
Interesting take. Let's take a call here. We've got Phil in New Mexico wants to say hi to you and make some comments. And then after that, we've got another caller coming through. Phil, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Hi. You know, I'm not finding everything he's saying offensive. I mean, as far as the Jew thing, even if it's only 500 being gassed, it's just ridiculous, and so that's just not right to talk about. As far as the gay thing goes, well, you know, I'm gay. I don't get into the gay pride parades. I think it's disgusting and retarded. I think that I don't need any more special rights than anybody else, and a lot of gay people don't like me, and I really don't give a rat's butt.
Okay, but Phil, yeah. I want to say something. I want to say something very interesting. I find the quote-unquote gay pride parade, especially in Toronto, demeaning to gay people, demeaning. And older gay people, older ones, agree with me. They say that because when the straight people come out and look at these parades, it's like a circus to them. They look at the people dancing on the floats not out of respect, and there's a lot of delusional gay people who think it uplifts them. It doesn't. I have a lot of respect for all human beings. But you know what's funny? If I say I think that the gay pride parade is demeaning to gays, they call me a homophobe. Or I say that transsexuality is delusional. Like I wrote an article on how it's one thing to be born, you're born heterosexual or homosexual, but transsexual at one time, it could be treated. For example, 80% of children who identify as transsexual spontaneously snap out of it. And the thing is, I mention this, and they say you're transphobe. I'm like, what do you? I'm just talking reality here.
Well, that gets me, the whole homophobe, transphobe. Number one, I'm not scared of them. Number two, what they're doing now is they're talking kids into believing that they are transsexual, like at the age of 5, and putting them on gender-bending drugs. And like a kid that age can't make that decision. They don't have no idea what's involved.
Well,
Yeah, and
I'll tell you
something
what.
funny.
I'll tell you what my issue is that I was married for quite some time. I have 3 kids. I have 5 grandkids, and I love every one of them dearly. And my ex-wife is one of my best friends. But the thing is, I should have stayed with her because after I left her, I dated a couple times, and I'm telling you what, holy mackerel, man! I just feel like some of these women out here are so off course and so ridiculous that it's impossible to even be around them. So I'm not going to say women made me turn gay, but I'll tell you what, I had no interest in dealing with some of the hysterical stuff you have to deal with some women today because of political correctness.
But you know what? I know some lesbians who prefer to be married to a man and only see women for sexual purposes because they can't handle the drama. And there's a lot of them out there. A lot of them out there.
Sure.
Yeah, it's true, man. It's true.
You keep on believing the way you believe in, and that's okay. I think you're a little piggish, and you seem to like that. That's all right.
Yeah, but listen, you know what?
Some people think I'm a lot piggish, and that's okay, too. That's my life, and that's yours,
but you
and
know what?
we're entitled to what we are.
Yeah, but you know what, Phil? When the pendulum's been swung so far in one direction, I got to slam it hard in the other direction before it lands in the middle. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I hear what you're saying, and I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree with a lot of this stuff with what's happening to men and having them being castrated by society.
Yeah, and by the way, you're in
really
New Mexico? You said you're in New Mexico?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Gary Johnson's a closet case.
Yeah, Gary Johnson, the libertarian that wants to throw people in jail if they don't take a mandatory vaccine.
Well, he's
I know, but he seems a little bit. I get the idea that he's in the closet. I just have that sense because living in Toronto, I got good gaydar. Yeah.
Well, if you met me on the street, buddy, I'm telling you what, you would have no clue whatsoever. I'm just who I am. I haven't changed.
I can tell you're butch.
I haven't changed my love for God. I haven't changed my love for sports or any of that stuff. I'm still who I am. So, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, but you know what's funny? Within in Hitler's Germany, a lot of homosexuals had high-ranking positions, but he only liked the butch guys. And the thing is, the brown shirts, all the high-ranking membership in the brown shirts were all homosexual, but they were, like, very masculine. And
I've actually heard that, too.
Yeah, I've heard that, too.
I've heard that before,
yeah. True. Well, they like the fetishy uniforms, too, right?
Yeah, a lot of guys in uniforms have that thing going on. But women like uniforms, too. I mean, women like a guy in uniform. It's just a fact.
I was in the military. I think they suck.
Phil, thanks for calling, and no you got anything else you want to say to Phil here, James?
No, I think it's wonderful that Phil called, and he sounds very level-headed, and he's got a good sense of humor, and I wish all of society had a good sense of humor and could take a joke, because you know what, this sort of a negative energy and everybody always walking on eggshells.
You're right. We're very balkanized. I hear the music. We got to let you go, Phil. We'll be back after these messages with James Sears. Welcome back to Americanuck Radio. We've got one of the most controversial people in Canada, Dr. James Sears. He's a white, male, heterosexual, North American, educated doctor, politician. The whole world hates James, and he's an outspoken Christian. Odd mix. See what he has to say. I've noticed that I looked for old interviews and news clips that they did on you, and it's like they have been scrubbed from the internet. They're really going out of their way to censor you or make sure that nobody even knows who you are, while at the same time that they come out against your ward news for being quote-unquote offensive. Leaders from around the world flew to France to stand behind Charlie Hebdo, the most disgusting publication ever made. So it's not about outrage. It's about selective outrage and what to be outraged at. And that's what it seems to me. And now, you were saying during the break that Justin Trudeau is announcing that he's going to apologize to gays. What's that all about?
Yeah, because Justin Trudeau is the ultimate social justice warrior, the ultimate SJW.
I think he's like a Manchurian candidate. I don't think he's even got his own brain, to be quite honest, but go on.
No, he's not. He's not very bright. I call him our metrosexual in chief.
Right.
And what he's doing now is he feels that homosexuals have been persecuted over the years in Canada. He's going to apologize on behalf of the Canadian people for all the persecution they had. Now, look, yes, there was one time where homosexuality was illegal and whatever, and you could go to jail for it and whatever.
Still is in Dubai and in the Arab Emirates. I mean, you could get beheaded for it in most Sharia law countries, but go on.
Of course. But the point is, you're going to apologize for everything that happened in the past. I wasn't alive at that time. Like the point is, why is he doing this? He apologized a few weeks ago because, I think it was 100 years ago, a ship full of Sikhs from India was stopped at a port in British Columbia and not allowed to dock. And they said it was some tragedy, the Mara or something, I forget what it was called. And he apologized for that. And I'm just thinking, what the hell is this? I mean, listen, the point is, it's crazy. But you think he would apologize for, I don't know, let's just say something the Canadian government did to Christians? No. To the Aboriginal? Well, he might apologize for that if he thinks he can score brownie points. But
the Harper administration already apologized for the residential schools. But my point in that whole thing is that I know people alive now that survived the residential schools. It's very difficult for them to talk about. They were tortured sexually. They were put in electric chairs. Now, it seems to me, if I did something like that, I'm sorry, just wouldn't cut it. Somebody needs to go to jail for the native genocide in Canada.
Of course, they do, but they're not alive now, the people that should go to jail. But the point is, look, we can't keep apologizing for this. The apologies are political. In the same way, Jews are constantly harping on this Holocaust BS, even if you think it's true. Let's just say for a moment that all the evidence that shows it's not true, let's assume for a moment you think it's true. Fine. Isn't there a point at which we stop talking about it? Because, let's face it, the largest Holocaust in history are the 100 million people that were slaughtered by the communists, okay?
Yeah, you've got the Holodomor in the Ukraine, you've got the Kurds in Turkey, you've got the Rwandan genocide. There's been a lot of Holocausts.
But look, 50 million Marxist Jews murdered 50 million Christians in the Soviet Union. The biggest mass murderer in history is a man by the name of Yengrik Yagoda. You never hear about Yagoda because he was a Marxist Jew who murdered 10 million Christians. He hated Christians, and he did it in the Soviet Union. He oversaw their murders, but you never learn about him in the history books because he's Jewish. They don't talk about it.
Let me just interject with this one thing. I do not. I take people on a case-by-case basis. Okay, there's good people that are Jews and there are bad people that are Jews. Okay,
of course.
But go on.
Yeah, no. Listen, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is the people who do up the textbook should say this is the biggest mass murderer in history. He was Jewish and he hated Christians and he murdered 10 million. Will you ever see that in a history book?
No, and they're scrubbing it from the news. It's happening right now in the Middle East, and they're scrubbing it from the news.
Of course, the Palestinians are being slaughtered by Jews, and it's Zionist Jews doing it. It's not all Jews.
You're not talking actual bloodline of Abraham Jews?
No, they're Ashkenazis who aren't even real Jews. They're Khazarian Jews who converted to Judaism in 740 AD. But that's a topic for a different show.
Fair enough. So, here's the thing. Whether you find this guy offensive or not, he has a right to speak his mind. And that is what I'm a fan of. Anybody being able to speak their mind. Now, you were talking about females in politics. Now, a little while back, a guy that I used to know here in Alberta was very angry over the policies of the new NDP government, which is absolutely destroying our economy. And so the idiot that he is, he phoned the legislature and started ranting at the secretary on the phone and said that somebody's going to come down there and shoot everybody. Now he's being charged by the Edmonton Police Service with uttering threats because you can't do that. That's a crime. My point is they're using that case now to start a task force in Alberta to investigate anybody that criticizes a female politician. So I'm serious, man, because we had a golf course west of Edmonton, I think in the Stony Plain area, that had cardboard cutouts of our new premier, Rachel Notley, and people were driving golf balls at it to hit it. And they got shut down by the government. They're not allowed to do that. But they've always done that. They did that with Harper. They did that with Klein. They did that. They've always done that with politicians.
Well, I don't know if the government. I don't think the government shut them down. I think government put pressure on the golf course, right?
Yeah, but my point is they're going to go to the point of shutting people down because it's created this new task force that if you criticize a female politician, that means ergo vis-a-vis you hate women.
Well, yeah, but oh, listen, man, it has nothing to do with hating women. I mean, if you criticize a person who has dark skin, you're a racist. If you criticize a Jewish person, you're anti-Semite. This is what they lob at you. And I think what people should do is they should embrace it. If someone calls you a racist, you should say, uh-huh. Or if they say sexist, you go, yeah.
Well, you've got a good point, but and here's the thing: it's when people roll over and apologize publicly that they'll flog you in the public eye. If you don't apologize, they have nothing to go on.
Yeah, you know what? I'll give you an example here. In Toronto, the police issued an apology a few weeks ago for in the 1970s or 80s, whenever. They were shutting down gay bathhouses. They were raiding them, giving these homosexual men a criminal record. Whatever.
I heard about that,
and the police apologized. Now, first of all, I wouldn't apologize. It's in the past. But they apologized for it. 1 week later, there was a gay pride parade, and a group of Black Lives Matter shut down the parade.
I remember that for half an hour.
No police should ever be at a gay pride parade because they feel threatened. The black homosexuals feel threatened around police. Now, the only reason they did that is they felt empowered because the police showed weakness by apologizing for what happened in the past. I say you don't apologize. You do like Donald Trump. Okay, you stick your foot in your mouth, you move on. Okay?
Well, you know what? The police should have obliged them. The cops should have said, okay, we won't show up. No problem. We've only got under a minute left, but is there any closing remarks that you would like in the very little time we have left, Dr. Sears?
Well, you know what? I have a feeling that a lot of people are sitting at home that wanted to call in. I mean, one guy called in and then chickened out, another guy.
He did.
I think that's the problem, okay? People they listen to me talking, and they're so intimidated. And it's like, buddy, if you're sitting at home, forget the women. I'm talking to the guys here. If you're a guy and you're sitting at home and what I'm saying is intimidating you, you've been feminized by society.
Afraid of words. Dr. James Sears on Americanuck Radio. Sorry to interrupt you, but the show is over. We'll be back next week, everybody. Head on over to Americanuckradio.com for the commercial-free podcast and all kinds of cool stuff. I'll see you next week.
Americanuck Radio.